Washington's defense dominated Northwestern.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports' Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Lars, we got a really fun show. We are just getting back from Washington's 24-5, unfortunately not scoregami, victory over Northwestern, their first victory in Big Ten conference play, which is awesome. We're going to talk about some of the things that we still need to see, improvement from. We're going to talk about the offense because it looked solid, but there's still a lot of meat left on the bone. We'll get there because we need to start with that defensive performance because, outside of a field goal that was given up on a short field, that was an elite defensive performance from Steve Belichick's group.
Well, and let's caveat it with the truth that you didn't have a full defense. I mean, Carson Bruener did play, but certainly I don't think was it Carson, despite the interception again. So certainly is healthy. I'm not saying he was playing hurt, but I still think, given the amount of reps that he got, probably by the time we get to Rutgers, he's probably fully healthy and without Zach Durfee. So this was a game where Isaiah Ward, to me, it was the defensive line kind of setting the pressure early because what did Northwestern not do that really had to happen?
They didn't run the ball. They couldn't run the ball.
But specifically with Jack Lausch, 13 carries, what was it?
20 yards.
13 carries for 21 yards. A 1.6 average after John Mateer, as I noted in my halftime story, burned you for 2+ from 20+ against Wazoo. So clearly the defense was able to make the adjustments. And, again, I'm not saying John Mateer and Jack Lausch are the exact same quarterback. They're certainly not. Jack has got a long way to go in that regard. But this was a good test that Washington passed with flying colors.
So I certainly agree with you. So here's a question for you. Who do you think, off the top of your head, tied with Carson Bruener as Washington's leading tackler today?
Oh, it's funny. I should know this because I actually did look it up already, but off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
It was Sebastian Valdez. Sebastian Valdez tied for team lead with 6 tackles. So, to your point about the defensive line really showing up, they did, and they were fantastic. At every level, the defense was absolutely fantastic today. There were 53 passing yards, 58, 59 rushing yards, something like that. Every level of the defense was truly tremendous. And, Jedd Fisch called them extraordinary after the game, and that really doesn't even seem to tell the whole story, where 2 interceptions, one for Carson Bruener, one for Kamori House, where, first of all, let's be real. Northwestern's receivers did Jack Lausch 0 favors. 0. There were so many drops. Jack Lausch, but on top of that, he completed 30% of his passes, and even that felt generous with the way that the pressure was getting to him, with some of the throws that he was making. So Washington's defense in every level was truly exceptional. Kamori House is a guy that, you talk about Carson Bruener not being fully healthy. Kamori stepped up and then some. Like on one of those goal line plays, he did a tremendous job where Alfonso Tuputala got credit for the tackle for forcing Jack out of bounds. But Kamori chased that play down from the backside, did a fantastic job getting him out of bounds. You look at the pass rush. Isaiah Ward's sack, Lars, came on a two-man pressure. Like, that's just how good this defense played today. They found ways to do things, as you said, without Zach Durfee at every level of the field, and I could not have been more impressed. Where, like Northwestern's offense, nothing to write home about. They're playing probably without their best player. But Washington's defense showed up and did everything it needed to, and then some.
Yeah, I mean, I think the notable thing is Northwestern not having Cam Potter kind of, I think, let's be real, there probably is a little bit of difference in the game if Northwestern has their leading rusher. It's almost like if you take away Jonah Coleman, obviously Washington still probably wins this game, especially with Cam Davis and that sort of thing, but that certainly hindered their offense. So on one level, kind of just want to add a little bit of context in that regard, but it doesn't take away anything of what Washington did. But I remember looking up at you at the press box. I was like, nail the Washington prediction. I gave Northwestern way too much credit. But I think, in fairness, again, that was kind of, you look at, I think they put up 31, 38 against Eastern Illinois. And I know it's Eastern Illinois, but it's like, okay, if the offense can put up something, maybe you can put up 14, 10. And the craziest part is they actually had a position to put up 14 more points in this game. Think about that. Actually, if those two defensive stands at the goal line do not result in 3 points and instead result in 14, I'm not necessarily good at math, but that's a narrower victory, maybe a 5-point victory that I had almost predicted before the game. So in reality, it's like it was kind of the game that we expected. The question coming in was, could the defense make the adjustments? And again, we both knew Steve Belichick was going to make those adjustments, but we just needed to see it. And boy, did we. Again, Northwestern's receivers, they might need a help wanted sign pretty soon because good.
So, sorry, no, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make sure that we spend a minute discussing something that Jedd Fisch told us after the game, where I don't think it registered for you or I in the moment. But Jedd Fisch's stat people, they do a fantastic job helping him out there. Where one thing that he told us after the game in the press conference was Northwestern ran 8 plays on the goal line, which, just from going back and looking at it, was inside the 5-yard line. They gained 1 yard on those plays. That's just absolutely tremendous. I just hats off to the defense for everything that they did down there. Where Lars, and it goes to exactly what you're saying with some of these defensive adjustments, is they toughened up and they needed to make when they needed to make a stop, they made the stop. And we're going to get to the penalties a little bit later on and some of the things that still really need to be improved on. But it, in the opposite fashion of last week, when, it's 3rd and 20. Yeah, you need a stop here. Oh, here's a 25-yard touchdown run. We saw one of those sort of plays today in the roughing the passer call on Brian Parham. But outside of that, they did a good job where it's saying, okay, yeah, we can't, we're not going to allow anything here. We need to get off the field here. They did that every single time.
Exactly. And to your point, it was funny because when they had the 3rd and 22 in the second quarter, I was like, hey, here we go. Like, all right, like, what did we learn from last week? It's like, hey, class, what did we learn today? What happens? Alfonso Tupachala makes the PBU. It's 4th and 22. They punt. I think there was like a 3rd and 15 on the previous drive for Northwestern. They gained 3 yards on the ground. Again, we're not, as you mentioned perfectly, there's nothing to write home about Northwestern's offense. No Ryan grew up in that offensive scheme. No disrespect intended to Northwestern, but I think we kind of knew that coming into the game. But yeah, as I kind of felt early on, like, can you win a defensive struggle? Can you win a 20-10 game? Can you muster up enough offense? And after that, the first drive, certainly not to be desired, but then you put everything together, and the defense, I think that was the key. From beginning to end, it was like, okay, look, Washington ain't losing this on the defensive side of the ball. The question is, will the offense put it together in enough sequence to make it happen? And they did. Now, again, certainly, I think there's room for improvements everywhere across the field, but that's also the case on defense when I open this by saying you still get Zach Durfee back next week. So you're pairing him with an Isaiah Ward, who I swear he had a two sack game. Looks like he got credit for a tackle for loss instead on the play. So I ended up deleting that tweet for anybody wondering. But again, it was a question of Isaiah. If it's not Durfee, it's Ward. If it's not Tupachala, it's Bruener. If it's not Prysock, it's EJ. Like, I know it wasn't on defense, but like, I don't see necessarily any of the time when I'm going to be able to talk about this. Elijah Jackson goes from being the hero to send Washington to the national championship last season to fighting for his starting spot. And when I say fighting, it's more or less he's not fighting for it, he's competing. It's just how many reps do you get on a given game. That track down to set up the goal lines, I think that's the other thing. If you allow that return all the way, it's okay, you know what? I don't want to pull a hammy or whatever, so we're just going to chalk it up and they get 11 points. Fine, whatever. It's still not on defense. It's like, no, anytime I'm on the field, I'm required to make a play. As I tweeted out, he was the only one with dog in his heart on that play because there was nobody close to making that tackle.
And shout out to when we talked to Isaiah Ward after the game, he said, yeah, that got us fired up. Like, that was something where we saw that play and we're like, yeah, we need to go make sure we help this guy out. Goal line stand. Awesome. Fantastic job there. And those are the things you love to see. Lars, there were a lot of things that we loved seeing, especially that Jonah Coleman hurdle on the offensive side of the ball, but there's still some ways to go there too. which we'll get to right after a message from our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. For all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So Lars, where should we start on offense? Should we start with the positives? Should we start with some of the improvement? I feel we should start on the positive side. And the thumbnail of this here video, that just spectacular Jonah Coleman leap, where that was one of the best plays I've seen in a while, man.
Yeah, it was why I had to ask Jedd about it in the post game. I was like, hey, so I actually completely forgot that Giles had done the hurdle. And I remember last year, obviously, Jack Westover was the hurdler of the team.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, the thing was, it's like, okay, are you doing it as like I'm going to try this and be this cool guy? Or no, the way Jonah did it, I couldn't necessarily put it into a tweet and really explain it. He downshifted into like second gear, hurdled, and as he was hurdling, went into fourth gear. Like he slipped third and went into fourth and continued on. Now, the second one, he paid for. You remember what happened on the second one? Hurdles them right into a Northwestern defender, and we are talking not straight up pile drive, but like suplex, body slam. Yeah, he got popped right into the ground. And so, as Jedd mentioned in the post game, hey, just protect yourself. Like, we kind of need you, buddy. Like, I love the enthusiasm, because it wasn't. That's the thing with Westover, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up was because when West did it last year, we know you can do it, but maybe choose better times. Both times that he hurdled, that Jonah hurdled, were perfect. He's paid for the second one a little bit more.
Right. And I certainly agree, where I'm certainly way more, I don't want to say concerned, but just way more enthralled by the first one, because just hurdling a standing defender like that is so much fun. And it's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this offense in general, where, we're not going to see that every game. That's not something we're going to see every week, but it's the playmaking ability of each and every guy, where it's something we've talked about on the show, where each and every week it's a different guy who steps up in the receiver room. Obviously, today was Denzel Boston. Fantastic day. 7 catches, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fantastic day. We saw a little bit more from Jeremiah Hunter, which was nice to see, where, Giles Jackson kind of felt like the odd man out at different times today, which is not a bad thing. It's just, all right, who are you going to go to? Where is it working? And especially early on, we saw that Will and Denzel were just in perfect sync. So that, and that's where I'm going with this, where we see that. That's awesome. We see Jonah making plays. That's awesome. We saw Cam Davis run through a couple of guys. Awesome. We're seeing Adam Muhammad make plays here and there. There are so many different just playmakers on this offense. It has always been, will the line hold up? And at different times today, it didn't. The snaps we're going to get to later, that needs to be fixed ASAP. Like, that's a huge problem. But you look everywhere else on this offense, when the protection holds up, Will still getting the ball out quickly. That 18, the throw to Denzel on the post for the 46-yard touchdown, that was a great throw. But personally, I thought his best throw of the day was the 18-yard quick out that he hit to Denzel. I think it was the drive after, because it showed what this offense can be when it's actually in perfect rhythm. And that's something that gets me really excited about moving forward, where it's, yes, if you're doing this, if you're hitting this in stride, in tempo, it's going to work really well, and everything is going to open up for you, and it's going to look great, because he had his lowest completion percentage of the season this year, and he still completed 71% of his passes. Like, this offense can be so efficient when the play calling is solid, when you're making plays, when you're not running speed option on the goal line. Sorry, I had to get that in there. When everything is working the way that it should, this offense is so efficient, and it can be so explosive, and you can do it from both the run and the pass game. And the Jonah highlight reel hurdle encapsulates that, but there were so many flashes of it today against a really good and really well-coached Northwestern defense, which I think is just as important.
And a really good Northwestern run defense. That's the other side of this equation. It was, whether you say it's a scrambling quarterback or whatever, still 144 yards, and you got the first rushing touchdown of the season against Northwestern. Now, in reality, they've only really played Duke, so you can only say it's one game prior, even though you had two other games that are in the non-conference. But to me, that was kind of what we talked about coming in, was run the ball. Now, again, they only got one because, again, they took the shot plays, and almost in a way, it's Jedd kind of answering the question. But I do want to say, not necessarily to push back, but even when there was the first bad snap that Will kind of bobbled and then ended up running for, I think, 12 or 15 on that play.
Still, it was like a 20-yard gain, yeah.
Or a 20, right. But it was 15 plus for sure. But that was kind of the point. But at the same point, which will lead, probably we'll get more so into the last segment here. But we saw Will at his best on the deep ball to Denzel. And I think, honestly, the second touchdown was better, because the way that Denzel had to go back over the second defender and actually go get it, versus the first one was perfectly timed right into the breadbasket against two defenders. Both good throws. As you mentioned, the 18-yard out to Denzel on the play that it resulted in a safety, I think Will just tapped out. And I don't necessarily fault him for it, because he had somebody out. I couldn't tell whether it was Kalecki or Denzel coming out on about a 12 to 15-yard curl. That was wide open, which I'm like,
so
okay.
You're right. But that's not the play. That's supposed to be just a screen. So I kind of like, you're right, because I know what you're talking about there. That was just a different level of frustrating, where it's that I kind of fault that on the play calling more so, where it's, all right, you know what you're working with on the offensive line. Why are you running a screen from the two? Like if it works, great. But the risk is way higher than the reward there, in my opinion.
But that's also kind of why I kind of liked, if that's, the Will's response, look, let's just give them two, live to fight another day, because we know the defense is balling. I almost think, like, hey, Jedd, like, take the play call. Like, almost like a veteran's way. I'm not saying Will did this, to be clear. But the reason why I say this is the offense looked good, and yet it's still Will's. I had, as I was looking at the final numbers in the press conference, I was like, Jedd wants 300, 200, and they were at like 250, 150. I'm like, you know what? Honestly, with this defense, 30 games, that might be all you need. Like, you don't need 300, 200. Now, again, if 300, 200 is the goal, more power to you. That's awesome. And I think we saw kind of in certain drives, if you go back and look, the one that started on the 2, as you mentioned, or the 5, whatever it was, if that drive starts at the 20, maybe you get 30, 40, 50 more yards. Maybe you only get a field goal out of it, but you still end up accruing those yards, ends up totaling everything. The other side of this equation that I want to get, and I got to be careful about how I talk about this for certain reasons, but when Damon Williams came in the game today, perfection. Now, again, it wasn't perfect in the sense of like every play was executed for positive yards. So I think he had one stack of minus 1 yards,
negative play,
which one negative play. But if you think about that, the way that he handled it, it was only for a 1 yard loss. So you're not taking the team out of field goal range. You're not really harming the team. That's a freshman play where I think by the end of the season, Damon's running a second and a half earlier, as I mentioned to you and somebody else after the game. I'm like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but Damon takes off 1 second prior. He has like 20 yards and almost a touchdown. Yeah, which would have been awesome that was the for play. Me, because that was my prediction for the game. Like, hello,
right? Because we were sitting up there because we're talking to our buddy Nick Lemkow from Last Word on College Sports, and we were talking during the play when he broke it. It felt like he was this close to scoring. Where I don't even think that it was if he runs a little bit earlier, it was just Northwestern's defensive line did a really good job of closing the gap that he was looking for. But because I hear you and I agree with what you're saying, but it just felt like when you watched him take off, it was, ooh, here he's going to make something here, which is one of the really fun parts of watching Damon play, and yeah, like I hear what you're going after in terms of, just the offensive just splits and just what that's going to look like moving forward. Or I think, and this is something you and I talked about, as we were prepping for the show, this kind of feels like the max of what we're going to see from Damon, where this is the perfect, just in terms of like a snap count, right? Where this is the perfect defense, where it's a really good defense. It's a good team, right? The offense certainly is a long way to go, but defensively they're good. They're well coached. It's a true Big Ten defense. Like, let's be serious. If this is Michigan or Iowa or Penn State, we're not seeing this sort of snap count for them. where you don't want to necessarily get out of the flow there, where Jedd said a little bit of how many snaps Damon took on that drive was due to Will maybe getting a little dinged up on a play. So they wanted to make sure that he was okay. But it also just kind of felt like, all right, this is a really nice way for him to get in rhythm. Where I'm really excited, and I wanted to make sure we talked about Damon, is that 2 QB play that we finally saw. We knew it had to be in the playbook somewhere, and we saw it with Will coming in motion and Damon coming off left tackle, which was awesome. We've been waiting for that, and we know, Lars, I think he's going to get a target this season after seeing that play where they're going to run the same thing. They're going to pitch it back to Will, and Damon's going to run a wheel up the sideline, and it's going to be so much fun. And I can't wait for that. And with that being said, there's still a lot of room for improvement on this team. And it feels like a lot of that starts on the offensive side too, which we'll get to right after a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, September 22nd, all FanDuel customers give it $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. And I got a really fun one for you here today. The Seahawks, they're taking on the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa on IR. I'm not a big fan of this Dolphins defense, even if Kenneth Walker is sidelined, which I know he's doubtful at the time of us recording this. Doesn't seem like he's going to play in that game. But no matter what happens, I am a huge fan of the Seahawks money line in this game, and you should go check out those odds over on FanDuel. Lars, they need to correct these issues with the snaps, where we saw 3 bobbled or bad snaps today. 1 turned into Washington. It's just the second turnover that they've had this season, but that's something that needs to get corrected right away.
Well, but here's the thing that blows my mind. I would almost understand it if it was Landon doing the snapping and having the issues, because again, sophomore, and again, that's what it's like to Landon. I'm not saying, but it's because D'Angelo is a 4-year starter.
Right.
Like that to me is what, and you've had now again, yes, he did come in June, so you only have June, July, August. Now you only have 4 months, right? So I understand that side of it, but as Will told us before the season, they have been working night and day on those snap counts. Same thing with Denzel, where the reason why he could hit Denzel with the pressure coming in his pocket is because they threw to each other at 5 a.m. without the lights on inside the Dempsey, so they know how to find each other in the dark. It's not not rocket science here, but that's what's mind blowing is. It's almost unnecessary. It's like a random times. It's not like, you have 2 back-to-back bad snaps. And they're almost like 3 different variations where 1, D'Angelo doesn't even get off the ground. 2,
Yeah, that's
hits his. That's the concerning one.
that was the bad one.
But he's done that 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
Because it was the same thing as Washington State too. And it was like, okay, if it's raining, I understand it. If it's, whatever, if there's an other, I just can't look at either game and say, why did that happen? Because It didn't happen again in the same fashion. Now, again, he did hit one off his thigh, I think, which, again, to be fair, he's got Jonah's thighs, so it's not necessarily the most shocking thing in the world to do that. But it also was, I think the play was going to the left, and so he kind of was like snapping it to the left, almost like at an angle, which I'm like, again, if you're a redshirt freshman, if you're Parker Brailsher making that mistake last year, get it. Once or twice, cool. He's still learning. But a veteran 5th-year guy, to me, I can't explain it. And I don't think Jedd can either.
No, and it didn't seem like he could, because when we asked, he was like, yeah, they've taken thousands of snaps at this point, where like part of you wants to look at that and say, all right, Will Rogers played in an air raid for a long time. So maybe, he's still getting used to that, but it doesn't feel like that, because there were 3 of them today. 2 of them were from D'Angelo, 1 was from Landon. And like you look at him, and one of them looked, I think the Landon one, it looked like it was a little more on Will, where he kind of bobbled it. But the other 2, the first one was the one that caused a turnover was on D'Angelo. That ball did not get up off the ground. You're right. The second one, you can't explain it. And it's something where you look at it and you just say, like, I have to go back to this example. I'm talking about Michigan a little bit earlier. Mason Graham is going to be in this building in 2 weeks. If Mason Graham is on the other side, That is a turnover 10 times out of 10. You cannot make that mistake. Against a lot of other defensive tackles in this conference, you cannot make that mistake. And you need to correct that moving forward. And another place you cannot make these mistakes is on special teams, where you did a great job of making sure that Elijah Jackson got credit, because Jedd Fisch did too. Jedd Fisch, 2 or 3 different times in his post-game presser, made sure to mention, hey, shout out to Elijah Jackson. Elijah Jackson was fantastic in making that play, getting the guys fired up, doing everything he did there. That's great. Washington allowed 189 yards between kickoff and punt returns today. 189. That's more than they gave up on defense. And yeah, half of that came on one return. But even if you take that out, that's still way too many yards. That is still a problem. And you look at it, and I'm sorry, Lars, but you look at it, and it's not just like, oh, they're breaking a long return here where that happened today, but it's every single one. It's consistently like, oh, on a punt, oh, the hang time's not great there. On a kick, it's, oh, they're whiffing a tackle here. Or like they got lucky on the first one where the guy slipped and fell down at the 10-yard line, where they need to make some adjustments there quickly.
And the other side of this coin is it's not like Denzel, and it's not on Denzel, but it's not like your punt return is lighting it up either. So it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah.
Denzel had a nice one today. I got to give him credit there. He had a really nice one there.
No, you're absolutely right. But what I mean by that is you're not looking at the special team saying, hey, well, it's like, hey, we give up a lot, but we also score a lot. Or we have like massive kick returns that put the offense in short field. It's kind of the opposite. It's like, Denzel had a good one, but other than that, I think he had 19 yards coming in on the season in punt return. Like it ain't been that great. And the other side of this equation is you don't have a scholarship punter. I know people are going to bust my balls about that. By the way, you only have 84 scholarship players. Figure that one out. Like, to me, you go and get a scholarship long snapper in the portal. Shout out to you for that. Cam Warchuck has been pretty good, aside from the Eastern Michigan game. And again, we've seen Grady Garza deliver. I think he missed a 51-yarder, but again, can't necessarily fault him for that. Jedd, he didn't want to set up the 20, like a chip shot that would have been on the 4th down in the goal toward in the red zone. So I'm like, okay, I understand that, but you don't have why not throw Adam Stahl out there at this point? What's the difference? Like, there's so many problems on special teams. I'm not sure it can get fixed in a week. That's the problem.
I hear you on the kicking side of things, where I'm way more concerned about coverage than I am about like the kicking, where when I look at it, I just see, all right, like, oh, they're going to break a return. It feels like every single return just has a way bigger chance than it should of being broken for 30, 35, 40 yards, where it's just, it like, seriously, every single one where, like, yeah, one of Jack McAllister's kicks, the one from the end zone, like barely broke the 40-yard line, which is just tough, where setting the defense up in short fields right now is not biting you, but it certainly could when you get down the stretch. Like, I think about, USC, like I think about Michigan, what they can still do running the ball, because they're certainly not going to be throwing it very well. But when I look at some of these other teams and what's coming, you need to figure those issues out quickly, because the short fields are not going to work. And you've got a lot of really nice athletes. You got a lot of really good bodies that have done a good job in the past. Like, even a lot of the guys that were on this team last year, it just feels different right now. And that's something that Jordan Paopao really needs to work hard on this week. And I feel like that's all we can say about that particular aspect of it. Because, Lars, the other thing that I think we need to look at is on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know, man. It still feels like there's more room for Jeremiah Hunter in this offense, where he looked awesome today. But I don't think the stat line reflects it with 3 catches for 41 yards.
Not only that, but again, read me Giles' stat line. It's 1 catch for 3 catches, 6 targets. Again, RIP that. But it's the point of, again, how many 3 wide receiver sets did you see today?
Right.
A couple. Again, a couple. You're absolutely right. There's a couple. But you have, call it 2 NFL receivers in terms of size, and a guy with Giles who's your best producing receiver coming into the game, from that respect. And it was pretty clear. Giles, when he had the first target, it was like, okay, good play by the DB. But it almost seemed like, okay, well, that play is now there, and now we'll go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah gets the one where he sits down over the middle. Good. Then really didn't go back to Jeremiah that much when I feel like he could have. Now, yes, you look at the positives and say, well, Denzel is 121 and 2 touchdowns and 7 catches. So what more do you want? It's like, well, I think of a Jedd Fisch offense, unless you're running for like 250 and 5 touchdowns, should be at least 3 receiving touchdowns on every game. When you look at, there's enough bodies, 6'7" Kaleki Latu, 6'4" Denzel, 6'3", 6'2" Jeremiah. Giles can just get open, so he'll figure that one out. Jonah, again, also a serviceable pass catcher, but Decker to grab as well. But to me, it's just almost like it's trying to placate everything. And now this is a game where, yes, you can do that. But against the Michigans of the world, at Iowa, honestly, at this point, Indiana, I'm going to throw that one in there as well because it's at Indiana. These are games where you're going to need – you can't just rely on, hey, you know what, we got Denzel and Will going, but it's like, great.
Sure.
But you also have – it's not like you have Audric Harris and Keith Reynolds as the only 2 options behind him. That's no shot to either of those 2 guys. But I'm just saying as a freshman and redshirt freshman respectively, I would understand, okay, cool, now I see why we're focusing on Denzel. Whereas you got Jeremiah, you got all these guys, you got the size to do it. We saw throughout fall camp the amount of post-up plays from Kaleki, from Denzel, from Jeremiah. I ain't never seen any of that this season.
Right. And it feels like they're saving it for whatever reason, which is, when you talk about the 3 receiver sets, it feels like they're trying to set stuff up later in the season, which I just don't get right now. Like, if it ends up working, I will certainly be happy to come on the show and be like, hey, I was wrong about that. Like, yeah, Jeremiah's got 4 straight 100-yard games. Like, if that happens, awesome. I'd be happy to be wrong. But it's just confusing to look at through the first 4 games. And Lars, with that being said, we're going to take off. We got to remind everybody about our Locked On Huskies Insider program, which is so much fun. We love doing it. You got to check it out down in the description below. You get a free 2-week trial. And then after that, it's $4.99 a month. We got so much fun stuff over there. We get to chat with us one-on-one. You get access to exclusive Q&A sessions. We're sending in, game reports, recruiting stuff. There's so much fun stuff that we got going on over there. Also, you got to remind everybody, we are now on Instagram and TikTok as well at Locked On Huskies. Make sure you go give us a follow. And if you like what we got going on, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel for new content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click the little bell so you never miss when we post new video. You got any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Monday.